He owns and operates the Pack a Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack a Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
You're never one player away, right? It's just I never believed that. But good players make impacts, and so anytime there's players of that caliber that you can acquire, you're trying to, So, but this is the ultimate team game. I've always believed that, and some of the best teams we've ever seen, didn't have a ton of stars on it, right? So it's really about how those units operate together. So again, you can't win without good players, but they got to work together. It doesn't matter how many good players you have; if they're not working together, it won't matter.
Anytime there's talent like that available to acquire, you're trying to. That is from Brian Gutekunst, not specifically on Micah Parsons, but a wink, wink, nod, nod. That was obviously the conversation that was started by the Packers media yesterday. Welcome in to the Pack a Day radio show. Happy Thursday. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. My name is Andy Herman. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Pack a Day radio show, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., talking all Packers all the time with a whisper of Brewers every once in a while when we talk to Tommy about the leadoff show, but we're mostly Packers all the time. We've got Tyler Brook coming up today. Best Available is his show on YouTube. He does such an unbelievable job covering all things Green Bay Packers, NFL draft. You're going to want to make sure you're checking that out, but really excited to talk to him today at 8:20-ish a.m. I would also love for you to join the show. You can join us on the Nicolay Law Fan Talking text line, 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250. Or if you're watching on YouTube, just send the comment in. We've got Matt Walter already, 8:01 a.m. Good morning, Andy and Tommy. He said good morning to Tommy before I said good morning to Tommy. Tommy, good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Mr. Herman. How are we doing today?
I'm fantastic. I've got some really fun stuff to talk about with the Micah Parsons conversation, courtesy of one Justice Mosqueda, who put together just a hit it out of the park article already this morning. I had a chance to talk to him a little bit. Him and a couple other people I know. We've been chatting about this thing, kind of keeping abreast of rumors, and I think he kind of nailed this one out of the park with where things are at. So I'm excited to kind of talk about that this morning.
I am still telling you that I'm choosing to believe and then be heartbroken later, Andy. So if it doesn't fit that narrative, I'm just going to let you know that's where I'm going to stand still by the end of it.
I'm a little bit worried for you because you already had your heart broken once this week by Julian Hicks, who we found out yesterday, we found out 2 days ago, not on the 53. We found out yesterday, not on the practice squad. So I'm worried about your heart. I want you to not have it broken twice in 1 week. I mean, you did find out that there's, that Taylor and Travis are getting engaged. So that heals all things, I know, but I'm just looking out for you.
I told you he wasn't going to make it to the practice squad. I knew it. I did not. I think he's going to get opportunities elsewhere, so I'm not worried about it. But I just want to be ahead of the curve on that one. And as far as Travis and Taylor goes, can you believe that Mitch Nellis didn't bring that up one time yesterday?
No way.
Not one, right? I mean,
he had all the time in the world too.
I know.
That's incredible.
I did not hear him talk about it one time with me, and I couldn't believe it. As the girl dad aficionado he is, never heard that. But yeah, congrats on the couple, I guess.
You cannot write the greatest breakup album yet if you are not engaged and or married. You have to have that. It's just been boyfriends so far. So if you're going to take it to the next level, you have to be engaged or married. So no, I'm just kidding. I'm cheering him on. Hopefully it is a happy ever after scenario, but congratulations to both of them. We've got bigger things to get to here on the Pack a Day radio show. This, if you're new here, all right, if anyone's listening for the first time, you're cruising down 43 and you happened upon the Pack a Day radio show and you want to know the level of junkie that we are. Brett's already chatting in at 8:03 a.m. saying, when does Josh Wiley replace Ben Sims? That is the culture that we are cultivating on the Pack a Day radio show, asking about when Josh Wiley is going to become the new number 4 tight end in Green Bay to replace Ben Sims. Brett, kudos to you, my friend. Well done. You have reached junkie status, and I appreciate you a ton for that. I don't know. Josh Wiley, I did not see get picked up, obviously claimed by anyone. I did not see him go to any practice squad, at least off the top of my head yesterday. He's a fun player. I did kind of have some curiosity if Ben Sims might be a potential cut candidate if they found a better tight end on the waiver wire. Greg Dulcich was out there. Josh Wiley was out there. There was a couple other ones, but apparently Green Bay did not have interest, and Ben Sims is still on the roster. Before we get into kind of the lead here with talking about Micah Parsons, Brian Gutekunst spoke yesterday, and one of the things that he talked about was the 4 tight end situation, and he went. It was a really good answer talking about how important tight ends are to Matt LaFleur in this offense and what responsibilities they have in pass protection, in run blocking, as receivers within the offense themselves. And then, of course, not only that, but their use on special teams for Rich Bisaccia as well, basically kind of detailing that like the job description is incredibly long for a tight end in Green Bay, which twofold. Number one, makes it important that you bring these guys in and that you have multiple tight ends that you can trust in these scenarios. But number two, once you have a guy trained up in a lot of that stuff, like Ben Sims is, he was a number 2 tight end for Green Bay for a good chunk of last year with the injuries to Luke Musgrave. He knows how to run block. He knows how to pass protect. He knows how to run the routes that Matt LaFleur is expecting of him. He knows how to play special teams in Rich Bisaccia's teams units, right? Those are not nothing conversation pieces when you're looking at the roster. So it's not impossible that they could replace Ben Sims, but just know he does have some job security here because it's a very difficult position in Green Bay to be able to check all those boxes of all the things that you need to do. And while Ben Sims is maybe not screaming out as amazing at any of them, he knows how to do all of them. And that's actually a very important piece as a number 4 tight end. So I do like Josh Wiley. I like some of the other tight ends that got released as well, but Ben Sims remains on the roster. And I think that is a big reason why. We did have some other transactions that took place that I want to get to as well. Nick Neiman is going to be a new linebacker on the 53-man roster. We talked about yesterday that I thought maybe they would put another player on injured reserve the day after so that they could bring them back, a player like Zane Anderson, maybe Baron Sorrell. But both of those players remain on the active roster. They did not practice yesterday at practice, but they that's good news for obviously both of those, that they don't have a 4-week like injury recovery, that they didn't need to put them on injured reserve to bring them back at some point. But it did mean that when you signed Nick Neiman, that you needed to release a player. And that's where you have one of those kind of heartbreaking stories with Micah Robinson, who as a rookie 7th round pick gets a day of, I made the team, I made the roster, I'm on the 53, and probably tells his family and friends. And then the day after he gets released. And then at the end of the day, you ultimately have a situation where he needed to, get cut. He's probably going to be back on the practice squad, and we'll hopefully see Micah Robinson still as a member of the Packers, but probably not on the 53 here. But Nick Neiman, your newest linebacker, special teams ace, is going to play, I think, that Christian Welch type of role in Green Bay. Eric Wilson from last season, and has some linebacker ability that I think is a little bit closer to Eric Wilson than probably Christian Welch, where he can come in a pinch and play linebacker if you need him to. So a nice pickup there for Green Bay is going to be somebody that Rich Bisaccia leans on a ton for special teams. Is probably only a break glass in case of emergency situation at linebacker. And then again, to make the corresponding move, Micah Robinson is released. He will likely be back on the practice squad today. They did start building their practice squad. It is a pretty full practice squad at the moment. And then there are 2 other players that, per Bill Huber, are coming over to Green Bay. We'll get to those in a moment. The returning players on the practice squad are Izzy Abanikanda at running back, Deslin Alexander at defensive end, Jonathan Baldwin at safety, Brant Banks at tackle, James Esther on the defensive line, Jamin Johnson at linebacker, Mark McNamee is the International Pathway Program player at kicker, Aaron Mosby at defensive end, Isaiah Nair and Will Shepard at wide receiver, Jalen Simpson at safety, and Christian Welch at linebacker. And one of the more intriguing ones, Mecole Hardman at wide receiver. The Hardman one is interesting because one of the things you have to be really careful of, same thing with kind of Christian Welch here too, is if they're on the roster for week 1, their contract fully guarantees. So if all of a sudden you put Mecole Hardman on the roster for those first 4 weeks or whatever, and then when Christian Watson comes back, you want to release Mecole Hardman, you still have to pay him his entire contract for the year because he was on the roster week 1 as a vested veteran. This basically circumvents that, where he's on the practice squad week 1. his contract does not guarantee. And you could end up in a situation where if McCole Hardman gets maybe called up to the active roster on week 1 to be the punt returner, looks good, and they want to continue to do that, you could maybe do that for a few weeks, but you run out of practice squad call-ups. At that point, you could look at switching McCole Hardman and Malik Heath and bringing Hardman to the active roster when his contract no longer guarantees, and then maybe trying to get Heath back on the practice squad. So there could be a little bit of roster gymnastics here with McCole Hardman, but I think it's either way great news that they get him back in the practice squad, at least as an option to be that returner and or number 6 wide receiver if you need him going into the season. So that was a big one. Some Packers who will not be back on the practice squad, or at least have not been retained as of yet. Taylor Elgersma and Sean Clifford at quarterback, Amar Johnson and Tyrion Davis-Price at running back, Julian Hicks pour one out for Tommy at wide receiver, as well as Cornelius Johnson, Johnny Lumpkin and Messiah Swinson at tight end, Kadeem Telfort, Trey Hill, Lasita Smith, Tyler Cooper, and J.J. Lippy along the offensive line, Devontae O'Malley at defensive tackle, Isaiah Simmons and Jared Bartlett at linebacker, Kalen King, Corey Ballantyne, and Tyron Herring at corner. Kalen King did sign with the Carolina Panthers practice squad, so he is gone. He will not be back. Just a reminder, the Packers do not have any rights on these players. They have every right to go anywhere that they want. If I'm Kalen King as a 7th-round pick and I've gotten cut twice by Green Bay as a 7th-round pick and been replaced by a wide receiver turned corner, a 6th-round pick that they didn't even make, that they picked up on their practice squad, and a 7th-round pick this year in Micah Robinson, yeah, I'm probably going somewhere else too, and it's probably time for a fresh start. Goody never cut 7th-round picks, and he did it twice, or never cuts his draft picks, and he did it twice with Kalen King over the last 2 years. So writing probably on the wall, and probably smart and wise for Kalen King to find a new avenue somewhere else, even if it's going to obviously disappoint Packer fans. And then last but not least here, they did sign, per Bill Huber, 2 more players to the practice squad. Dalton Cooper, an offensive lineman who's got some versatility, can play multiple spots, and was a top 30 visit during his draft time that the Packers did bring in. So they still had some interest there. They love their top 30 guys. I mean, just always be aware of guys they bring in for top 30 visits, because if they don't get them right away, they continue to look at them down the road. And this is the exact case here with Dalton Cooper. By the way, their other Kennard, the offensive lineman that they just got via trade, also a top 30 visit that they had previously. So they love those guys. And then Clayton Thune, the quarterback, who by all reports was the guy that they wanted as their draft pick when they picked Sean Clifford. And Thune went I want to say 10 picks ahead of where Green Bay was drafting. And then there was this huge quarterback avalanche that took place. And Green Bay all of a sudden looked up at their board. And if you remember, they had no salary cap space because that was when they were kind of all in and had already spent all their money. So they couldn't afford a veteran backup quarterback. They had no other one on the roster, and they needed to find a backup quarterback via the draft. They were thinking they were going to get Thune. They didn't. And all of a sudden, all these other quarterbacks go, and they were sort of the last guy they had a draftable grade on was Sean Clifford, and they overdrafted him in the 5th round because they needed to get a backup quarterback. Now Sean Clifford is gone. Clayton Thune is on the practice squad as a developmental QB. The nice thing here with Thune, he has a higher upside than Elgersma, which is why you would have kept Elgersma, was for the upside. He has a higher upside than Elgersma, and he's more ready to play right now than Sean Clifford. I'm not saying it's what you want as your number 3 quarterback, as Brett was asking there. Do the Clayton Thune option? Do I like the Clayton Thune option as a quarterback 3? I do. I think it's a really smart pickup for Green Bay. But I will just say, this is still a situation where he is your emergency quarterback. And you don't necessarily want him coming into games, but it's a better option than either Elgersma or Clifford were. That was a lot, Tommy. Anything that you wanted to add to any of that conversation there?
No, I thought that the McCole Hardman point, though, was interesting. So his contract is only guaranteed if he's on the roster week 1, is what you're saying, Andy?
Yeah, well, as soon as week 1 is over, and it's the same for any vested veteran, Isaiah Simmons would have been in that category. Christian Welch would have been in that category. McCole Hardman, anyone else. If you're on the roster week 1, Nick Neiman will be in that category. If he is, obviously he's probably going to. They just signed him to a deal. If he's on the roster week 1, his contract will guarantee through the entirety of the season. Zane Anderson, etc. So once you get to that vested veteran space, you kind of have to do a little bit more to earn your way onto the 53 because they know that your contract's going to guarantee if you're on it.
So I mean, to come back on the practice squad, and then I like the idea of him being available to come up for a game day roster spot later on, but aren't we the most concerned as fans about week 1, with the health and availability of wide receivers, and still don't really quite understand the benefit then? If the Packers will not bring up Mecole Hardman for game one, no matter what, so they don't have to guarantee the contract for the rest of the year.
Here's the good thing here.
Yeah.
They can call him up from the practice squad, and then his contract does not guarantee. So because he's on the practice squad and not the active roster,
got it.
Then his roster, or then the contract does not guarantee. So this is sort of like a workaround where you can put him on the practice squad, call him up. Contract doesn't guarantee. Also, he's on a much smaller contract anyway as a practice squad player. So yes, and then on week 2, if you wanted to, you could put him on the actual 53. And then again, his contract would not guarantee after there. So it's just, again, a little fun roster gymnastics, potentially, if that's what they want to do.
But so at any point, calling him up from the practice squad now for week 1 will guarantee his contract?
No,
it will not.
No, it will not. So yeah, no, it will not guarantee if they call him up week 1.
But again, like week 1 is kind of where we're the most concerned about health, right? I mean, are these guys going to be ready to play? And like that could be a very viable option for Green Bay now.
Yes, very much so. So yeah, there's 2 different ways. You could actually sign him off the practice squad to the active roster. If you do that, then yes, his contract would guarantee. They're not going to do that. If they just use one of their practice squad call-ups on Mecole Hardman, then no guarantee there. And yes, that is a way to get him on the roster. And yes, with the injuries at wide receiver, plus with him wanting to potentially or just, again, the ability to return punts and then not wanting to guarantee that contract, that is an option for sure. Speaking of those injuries, good news yesterday in the injury report. Xavier McKinney, Aaron Banks, Elton Jenkins, Jaden Reed, Devontae Wyatt, Dontavian Wicks, all were practicing in some capacity. So seeing Jaden Reed and Wicks out there was great. Reed did say that he still has some pain in the foot. That did give me some nervousness and trepidation kind of moving forward with him. But McKinney, Banks, Jenkins, Reed, Wyatt, and Wicks all practicing. The players that were not practicing were Nate Hobbs, Savion Williams, Barron Sorrell, and Zane Anderson. The big one there, Nate Hobbs, you would really like him available week 1. And of course, Washington right away in week 2. There did seem to be some hope that he still could be back week 1, but we are getting closer and closer, about a week and a half away from that first game. We'll see if Nate Hobbs can get out there. But as of yesterday, the big one not practicing, Nate Hobbs. The big returns, McKinney, Banks, Jenkins, Reed, Wyatt, and Wicks. I do want to get to the conversation about Micah Parsons, because there's been a ton of buzz out there, a ton of noise, a ton of information, maybe misinformation, who knows, but it's been crazy. And I do think, could Ricky Scoop's account be a burner for someone like David Mulligetta? David Mulligetta is the agent for Micah Parsons, Jordan Love, a lot of other people. I have heard that rumor put out there. I don't know how anyone proves it, but I have heard that rumor out there. Here's what I will say. There's a lot of, again, smoke out there about Micah Parsons to the Packers. Go read Justice Mosqueda's article over at acmepacking.com. It is one of the best how the sausage is made in the NFL articles when it comes to trades and how Green Bay is utilized in some of these situations. There was an old feeling back in the day, and it was said by Gil Brandt. It was said by Mark Murphy. It's been said by many others as well, that when people were upset with their contract, or if they were doing something that was going to upset one of the other teams, they'd say, be careful, or we're going to trade you to quote unquote Siberia, which they considered to be Green Bay. Nobody wanted to go to Green Bay in a trade. And it was always a threat that, hey, if you don't knock it off, if you're demanding a trade, fine, we'll do it, but we're going to send you to Green Bay. And all of a sudden people that, they would be like, oh, okay, never mind. I'll show up or whatever. They didn't want to get traded to Green Bay. So there's a little bit of that's reportedly going on in this situation. Justice, not the only one I've heard this from as well. So the situation is Micah is unhappy. The Cowboys are unhappy. The Cowboys want Micah at a specific number. Micah wants to be at the highest paid number, understandably. So the Cowboys say, fine, if you want to be traded, we'll trade you to Green Bay. And there does seem to be a piece of Micah that kind of wants to stay in Dallas and doesn't really want to be traded to Green Bay. But David Mulligetta, Parsons' agent, is not an idiot, and he goes to Green Bay, and Green Bay does have legitimate interest in trading for Micah Parsons. So they kind of start talking a little bit, and they get a number. They get a number that is $45 million per year, making Micah Parsons the highest paid defensive end and defensive player in the NFL. And then David Mulligetta can go back to Dallas and say, all right, Green Bay's offering this amount of money. Give us this. And that's how you get all these leaks and everything of being like, Green Bay's interested. They're willing to pay $45 million per year. Micah Parsons' agent is using that as leverage to say, hey, if you're making the threat, hey, we're going to trade you to Green Bay, guess what? They're willing to give us the contract that we want. Go for it. Trade us to Green Bay. And at this point, Dallas still wants nothing to do with trading Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons ideally wants to stay in Dallas, but they have not bridged the gap on that contract to get it to that point. In the meantime, Green Bay is legitimately interested in Micah Parsons per multiple reports, including this from Justice Mosqueda, and they are wanting to trade for him, but there remains this issue of Dallas remains uninterested at this time, although per Justice, there have been more conversations with Dallas recently of what the trade would look like with Green Bay. And there have been more discussions in Green Bay of what that trade would look like with Dallas. And that is where things stand right now, that Green Bay and knows the contract that Micah wants, is good with the contract, is interested in trading for them, have had discussions of what that offer would look like, are still remaining very interested. But at this point, Jerry has not officially wanted to move on from Micah Parsons. He still thinks that this is ultimately going to get done, that Micah Parsons is going to be a Cowboy next Thursday when they play the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think deep down, Micah would still ideally like to stay in Dallas, doesn't really want to go to maybe small town Green Bay quite as much, and is hoping that it ultimately gets worked out as well. So whether this is just Green Bay getting utilized as leverage in this entire situation, maybe. Whether it is, an agent being really smart and saying, hey, you're going to leverage Green Bay, I will leverage them right back at you. Green Bay's willing to give them the contract that you won't give us. So either give us it or we will take that offer with Green Bay. So that's where it seems things stand right now. There does seem to be legitimate smoke to this entire situation where the Packers are actually interested in trading for Micah Parsons. I still wholeheartedly believe, as I think kind of Justice does well, if you check out the article, and again, I cannot stress it enough. Even if all of this is wrong, by the way, just the minutia of how this stuff goes down in the NFL and how Justice writes this article it's one of the best articles you're going to read all year long, period. But it's over on acmepackingcompany.com. And it's a really interesting conversation, and it's unique to see if this will actually something again come to fruition, or hey, Green Bay was in on the conversation, they tried, they were not able to actually get him in Green Bay, and he just remains in Dallas as probably the new highest paid defensive player in football. Tommy, if I'm making the bet over at Potawatomi Sportsbook today, he'll be a Dallas Cowboy. He will get that highest paid contract. They'll eventually, work things out, iron things out, and make him the highest paid defensive player. But I'll add one more thing on top of this. I've also heard from multiple people that the angst, anxiety, frustration, vitriol, and anger between Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys is also legitimate. So while that maybe is just something that they're kind of using Green Bay right now or trying to get that number up, or in Dallas's case, the number down, I do think that there is still an opportunity here for things to fall apart with Micah and Dallas. There does seem to be, again, some real frustration there, and Green Bay is interested. So put that where you will. I'll still take the stance. I'll believe it when I see it, but it's a very interesting conversation piece nonetheless.
I choose to believe, Andy. I choose to be heartbroken. I will be the guy screaming on top of the mountaintops and embracing everyone who wants to come with after. And we can all rejoice and be happy Micah Parsons is a Packer if it does happen. And I'll be heartbroken later if it doesn't happen, Andy. That's where my stance is on it.
Listen, this is the fun stuff. The fantasy booking of who could come to Green Bay, the trade options, what they'd have to give up, who they get in return. Like that, this is all like really fun. This is why we stand around the water cooler and talk about this stuff. This is why we tune into. And again, you guys know me. I started off talking back like number 4 tight end options for Ben Sims. I want to live in the realm of reality 99.9% of the time. And I do think that this, again, is rooted in the realm of reality, that this is not just some, fake trade of like, what could the Packers give up for so-and-so? Like, that would be interesting. This does legitimately seem to have some real smoke to it. We'll see if it actually ends up happening. But this is what makes sports so much fun, is to think about what the Packers would look like with Micah Parsons. Could it happen? And there's such great water cooler conversations to have. And of course, fun conversations for us here on the radio as well. All right, Football Talk in the Fan is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL and CBS on Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. We are 64 and partly cloudy in Milwaukee right now. High of 70, low of 54 in these late August nights. We'll be back with Tyler Brook in just a moment. Do not go anywhere. This is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show, live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder Nellis is coming up next from 9 to 11. Also, Tommy, it's really important when we make a mistake, we own up to it. I have to own up to a mistake. Yesterday, we had a good conversation, one of the best conversations we've had probably, on Uncrustables. And I said that the Denver Broncos eat 7,000 Uncrustables per week.
Yeah.
I read the graph wrong. It is 700. It is not 7,000. The picture says one Uncrustable equals 10. So I thought they were multiplying everything by 10 in the graph, which they were based on the Uncrustables pictured, but it was still the right number on top. So 700 Uncrustables for Denver, not 7,000. Still an incredible feat overall, but I have to own up to it. They did not have 7,000 Uncrustables.
I wonder.
So that's my bad, and I'll own up to it, Tommy.
I wonder where Tyler ranks on Uncrustables.
It's good to know that you guys are doing the hard-hitting questions and, sticking to accountability when it comes to Uncrustable consumption.
I've probably said a million things wrong about the actual Packers, NFL, anything sports related, and I probably never went back to correct it. When it comes to, food integrity and Uncrustables, I have to own up to it. So I will take the L on that one. Welcome in, Tyler Brook, best available on YouTube, at Tyler D. Brook on social media. He is joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. Tyler, it has been too long, even though I think you're probably one of our now most frequent guests on the show, which I appreciate a ton. But welcome back. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I mean, there's literally college football tonight, and it might not be the best games, but there's going to basically be football as many days as possible for the next few months. And I'm just, over the moon. I've already had to talk to the girlfriend, listen, Saturday ain't going to happen. I'm not moving. There's too many good games on. And fortunately she understands, but I can't wait. Football is back.
There's always that difficult line to toe where you already know Sundays are a no-go for everything. And then it's all right, how much of Saturday can I navigate in of all right, do I just get a Badger game, or is there things like that? Obviously, as I've covered the NFL more, less Saturdays, I've done a lot more family stuff on Saturday. There's been a lot of soccer, but there's always that negotiation period of all right, how much college football can I get away with here? That is a line to toe and a dance to dance at this time of year for sure. Yeah.
She's an absolute trooper. I love that she does not care about football, but she's extremely supportive of me watching the football. So we found this very good balance.
I am in a very similar situation as well, so I get it entirely. Let's talk about some of these Packers moves that took place and a lot of other stuff that's going on in the Packers sphere. We got our initial 53. We had a couple additional moves yesterday with Nick Neiman coming over, as well as Clayton Thune reportedly coming over to the practice squad. We've got most of the practice squad set. We've got the 53 currently set, although always in flux. What stood out to you with this Packers initial 53 practice squad and the moves that they made this week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty relieved to see that Hardman and Simmons did not make the 53-man roster. And I don't mean that to sound harsh, but I don't think either of them performed to the level that they need to be 53-man players, particularly Simmons. After watching the film, I was really disappointed. And I don't like to be the negative person on a lot of these things, but as someone that had to coach linebackers and have had to spend a lot of time learning it, I was getting frustrated, actively frustrated, watching him not read keys or even attempt to go towards the line of scrimmage on some plays and just allow these massive rushing lanes. So I thought they made the right decisions on those fronts. I was a bit surprised about how thin it is at linebacker on the 53. I believe it's only 4 guys are on the active 53 at linebacker. And then the fact that they kept, is it 6 defensive tackles, with Stackhouse also making the 53. I did do a video on Stackhouse potentially making the 53. Andy helped me out with that on YouTube, which I did appreciate quite a bit. But yeah, those were the big takeaways. I didn't think there were many other big surprises. I was really excited to see that Bo Melton made the roster. I'll admit I was probably one of the more skeptical people as far as him switching to corner. I even had to hold some people accountable, posting highlights they thought were quote unquote good reps from him in practice, to explain why they were not. But then I went to the Colts game in person, since I'm Indianapolis based. That dude may not have all the technique down, but he is mean. And I absolutely love the intensity and competitive toughness he brought to the position. So I think he absolutely earned that roster spot and was thrilled to see that.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think you're spot on that. I want to go back to Stackhouse because I know you obviously did that large episode on him specifically. Again, some of the technique stuff needs some cleaning up. It's not perfect yet, but he also has 330 pounds that you can't necessarily teach. And it's a good 330. Like, he moves well for his size. And they don't have that flavor of defensive tackle on the roster. They have Kenny Clark. They've got Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, Colby Wooden, those type of players, but not truly a big time run, nose tackle type. And Nasir Stackhouse brings that to the table.
Yeah, it's so funny after watching the film because, like, I thought his best trait was functional strength from awkward angles. And like you talked about, like, there's really not that on the roster in the A gap, right? Like, there's some of these plays where he's getting double or triple teamed on like 3rd, 4th, and 1, and he's like tripping over himself, but somehow not getting displaced. But it's so weird because on the opposite end of that, he can have a clean base and, everything is going well, and he can get easily washed down on like an inside or outside zone. So I think a lot of that's just technique stuff. There's a rep specifically where I can tell he's working on disengaging with hand usage, but it looks so clunky. Like, he's trying to like think one step at a time on how to disengage from this block. So clearly there's a lot of that needs to be cleaned up. But, like you said, whole reason I said he should make the 53-man roster is it's such a specific role that is actually vital, especially in the era, still for now, of the tush push. You just, you need a big body to plug up the A gaps and, prevent these short yardage situations. And I think he'll be able to do that.
I think so too. And it just, again, gives a different flavor. I'm a huge believer. We hear at wide receiver of like, build a basketball team. You want your small shifty guys. You want your big power forwards. You want kind of everything in between. I think it is apropos on so many different cases. Like on the defensive tackle room, like I want my overall guy in Kenny Clark. I want some 3 techniques that can get up the field, but I want some run pluggers like Nasir Stackhouse as well. I think it's important to have those different flavors. At edge rusher, I'm glad that they're now finally open to having some designated pass rushers, some speed guys on the outside like a Colin Oliver, even though he's not active. I just like having different flavors of player where if you need to plug something in, you have it. And I think at wide receiver, tight end, running back, they've done a great job of having all different types in those rooms. And I don't think if they didn't have Stackhouse, I don't think they have that type of player. It just gives Jeff Hafley, DeMarcus Covington, and that defensive staff just a different piece to work with. And I think he's going to fit in well on that defensive line.
Yeah, I think the best teams in the NFL are good at being multiple. And you hear that a lot on defense. I think the same is for offense. And I think the biggest takeaway I had from this offseason as far as acquisition through the draft, UDFAs, and free agency, they are trying to get multiple on both sides of the football. So, hey, do you need a game where you just need bigger bodies up front to stop the run? You've got that now. Do you need the designated pass rushers against a team that likes to spread it out and, generate pressure on the quarterback? You have that flavor now too. There's a lot of different pieces on this team now that I'm really encouraged by. And I'm still way more bullish on the secondary than the national outlets seem to be, because everyone acts like they have no guys. I know this is a bit of an aside, but I went back the past few games I've been watching, like, old film from last season. And like, I genuinely believe Keyshawn Nixon now is a better outside corner than he ever was in a slot.
Big time.
And I like floored, like, and I don't think had anyone ever tried this in his NFL career. And it's so funny to think about just because like really, really good tape.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It was really remarkable. And if you kind of look at his like RAS profile and some of the things that he's good at and not good at, he profiles better as an outside corner than he does as an inside corner. Like some of the agility stuff was not always there for Keyshawn, and you just tell it ate him up at times. And on the outside corner, he kind of has that straight line speed. He has the ability to read. He's a really good communicator. And I also am just a huge believer that right now, with so much zone defense being played, so much of what's going on is the ability to communicate pre-snap, confuse pre-snap, maneuver around post-snap, but also know exactly what you're supposed to be doing and to be able to make those adjustments on the fly in the secondary. I think it's understated how much better Green Bay was at handing off assignments and knowing exactly where they're supposed to be when the offense is doing everything in their power to trick you, to make sure that, like, whether they're stacking 2 wide receivers on top of each other to try to mess up who's actually covering who or things like that. I thought Green Bay was phenomenal at making sure that, like, Tyler, that you might as well have had like a ongoing Spider-Man pointing meme in the Packers secondary for years of like, after the play, there's a blown coverage and everyone's just doing the pointing meme at each other of like, yeah, it was your guy. It was your guy. We didn't see that, knock on wood. We didn't see that last year. And I do believe that in this version of, where we're at with zone defense, Nate Hobbs Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, and then the safety room that they have as well. These guys know how to play this Jeff Hafley defense. They fit in it well. They communicate extremely well, and they're doing all the stuff that maybe doesn't get noticed as much, and it's making it really difficult. It's why teams did not have 100-yard receivers on Green Bay. I think A.J. Brown might have been, I think, the only one last year, or at least was in that conversation. So they've done a really good job, and I think the secondary is going to perform better than a lot of people think.
Yeah, and exactly what you're talking about as far as scheme and zone understanding and all of that. Like, I think Carrington Valentine really thrived in that role, playing like on the flat. He was so good at playing underneath and then feeling when the quarterback's trying to go deep on his side, because he would carry that upfield. And then I think he came away with multiple turnovers. I remember that Seattle game. I think he dropped interception doing exactly what I'm talking about. And then literally the next play came away with an interception, playing the exact same assignment. I think my bigger concern for the secondary, though, is just like, especially when the playoffs come, you need to be able to play some man. And that's going to be the bigger question is the secondary room built for that? I do think long-term, if Carrington Valentine hits his top 10% outcome as far as like a player, and as far as hitting his full potential, I think he can be a legitimately good man corner. I just have questions about the other guys.
And I think that's totally fair. And I as much as I think that they can be a really good zone coverage team, I do question them. I also when you do get up against some of the really good wide receivers, like can these corners hang? And we saw in the joint practice, and again, it's just a practice, whatever. I'm not spending too much time. They're not game planning for him in that situation, but Jackson Smith and Jigba just went off against Green Bay in that particular practice. No Nate Hobbs, no Xavier McKinney. Again, these are all things worth noting, but when you get into some game situations and you've got the best of the best, the Justin Jeffersons, the Amon-Ra St. Browns, et cetera out there, are you going to be able to stop those guys? And again, to their defense, they did really last year. They did not allow really anyone except A.J. Brown to kind of beat them, but that is, I think, going to remain a challenge this upcoming season. Tyler Brook, of course, you can find him on social media at Best Available on YouTube. You can find him on social media at Tyler D. Brook. We got to talk about the Micah Parsons situation. Yeah. We talked about Justice Mosqueda's got a great article out there this morning over at acmepackaging.com. It's so good. It's so ridiculously good. What do you make of this entire situation? Where are you at, and where's your hopium at the moment?
I'm always gonna have hopium just because it's fun for the content. Just throwing out some memes out there. Just because at the end of the day, this is all an entertainment product, so just have some fun with it. He's gonna re-sign like on Thursday. It's just how the Cowboys operate, and I hate the way they do it because they're just costing themselves tens of $millions in value at this point with CD, Dak, and Micah. They just keep basically like outbidding themselves as the market keeps resetting around them. That being said, I do truly believe, and from everything I've heard, there is a deal on quote unquote on the table. Like they have a package put together to offer. And in my opinion, like if they are willing to listen to a trade package, you give them a massive deal. It's Micah Parsons. This is a transformative player on your defense if you were able to acquire him. And the parallels to him and then Reggie White wouldn't be, too far, like too much of a stretch of the imagination, just because Parsons is that kind of transformative player for the defense on a team that was pretty dang good on that side of the ball last year, which is still kind of crazy to think about when you think about where things were just a couple of years ago. It's not going to happen, but we can always hope. We're Packers fans. As far as getting huge players, they're going to be in on every conversation, right?
That is the thing. And I did appreciate, kind of Brian Gutekunst sort of talking about, again, when there's a player of this caliber, he didn't specifically mention Parsons, obviously, but you kind of do your shopping, you figure out if there's a way that you can get in those conversations. You see if you can actually get him on your team. By the way, for whatever it's worth, if you're looking for odds of Micah Parsons becoming a Packer, I've not seen any update on this today as of yet, but when the odds opened for where Micah Parsons will end up, Green Bay was at plus 4,100. On August 22nd, about a week ago, they were plus 1,100. On 8/26, the morning of, which was 2 days ago, they were plus 1,000. At the end of the day, they were at plus 850. Yesterday, around noon, they were at plus 500. It went down to plus 400 at one point yesterday for Green Bay and Micah Parsons. I'm still shorting it. I'm still taking Dallas in that final line if I'm making some wager at the Potawatomi Sportsbook here. But yeah, it's still interesting to see. Now, again, those are for getting money into the casino. They're trying to get your money, but it's still interesting to see those odds kind of dip the way that they have to the point where it's a little bit more interesting now.
Yeah, the implied odds there are like what 25%. That seems about right, honestly, from everything I'm hearing. Like, we can still hope and think that a trade's going to happen. But like, I get that people like to joke that Jerry Jones is old. He ain't old enough, I think, to trade away, like a cornerstone of the franchise. I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, if we didn't see this song and dance from Dallas in the past of doing this exact same thing with all their other star players, I'd be like, oh, maybe maybe this will happen. And I'm still an idiot enough to think like, oh, maybe this will happen. But again, if I'm betting on it, I'm going to say he still remains a Dallas Cowboy. Tyler, I cannot thank you enough for everything that you do and always helping us out as well. Where can we find all of your incredible work? And what do you want to plug on the way out?
Yeah, I'm going to plug the YouTube. We've had a ton of success lately, which has been really awesome. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed for the support. That's been actually really crazy to see the last week or so. So it's at Best Available YT. I think if you also search that on YouTube, you'll find it, but we're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. You can also follow me on Tyler D. Brook. I just had a story come out with the Falcoholic over at SB Nation about how the Atlanta Falcons could put up Star Wars numbers this year. That is, a really nice thing to say about their offense. That also comes with some concerns about that defense. I think that's a big reason why we might see that.
I have we don't need to get into this, but I'll just say I need the Atlanta Falcons to be bad this year. So I hope that you're wrong and that the Falcons are bad this year and that they're in a really bad division. So I think they'll at least be fine. But they're going to be one of those really unique teams to kind of keep an eye on. They go all in. They trade away a future first round pick to try to get a little bit better this year. They lose Caleb McGarry was it for the season, I think, recently. So they're in a very interesting spot, and I'm very intrigued to see how they kind of end up this year. Go follow him; he's incredible. Tyler Brook on social media at Tyler D Brook, and of course over on Best Available on YouTube as well. Tyler, I'm sure we'll do this again very, very soon if we don't talk before the season. Enjoy the start of the season, and of course college football tonight and this weekend. And again, we'll talk very soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Andy.
You bet. Thank you to Tyler for joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. Make sure to follow him again at Tyler D. Brook. This is the Pack a Day Radio Show. We got a lot more for you right after this. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show. A huge thank you to Tyler Brook for joining us this past segment. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder Nellis is coming up next from 9 to 11. Also, an important PSA for our listeners. The Pack a Day Radio Show is also a podcast. You can find us anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your favorite pods. Catch the full episode, listen by individual hour, or jump straight to the highlights. Just open up your favorite podcast app, search Pack a Day Radio Show, and hit that follow button. So get every minute of the show your way and on your time. While you're out there, make sure you're following the actual Pack a Day podcast as well, as we got a new episode for you guys 365 days a year. We've had a lot of great conversation on YouTube today. I do want to mention, we talked about the Justice Mosqueda article where things are standing with the Micah Parsons situation. Some of you might be saying, all right, we've had a lot of anonymous dogs on Twitter saying stuff about Micah Parsons. We've had, maybe, Justice Mosqueda at Acme Packing Company, or Andy at Pack a Day, or some of these other people talking. Where are the beat writers at? Where's the Ian Rappaports? Where are the Adam Schefters? Like, where can we get something? Well, here you go. From Bill Huber, Packers on SI, one of the more connected people with the Green Bay Packers that you could possibly have. Quote in an article he just put out, highly recommend checking this one out as well. The Packers are interested in trading for Dallas Cowboys star Micah Parsons, perhaps very interested in trading for Parsons. Their purported interest in one player or another has been used by teams and agents for leverage countless times over years. The feeling around the league is this time is different. And he would also go on to say, first and foremost, the Cowboys don't have to make a trade. While owner Jerry Jones has said he would not trade Parsons, a league source told the Packers on SI that they are finally entertaining offers despite their public posturing. So there does seem to, again, be even more smoke. And per Bill Huber, the Packers are interested in trading for Micah Parsons. And again, if you're looking at this from a Cowboys point of view, the Cowboys are now starting to actually be interested in taking offers for Parsons as well. So as the Micah Parsons wheel turns, we shall see. This is a very substantial report from Bill Huber, Packers on SI. This is not just some, internet dog rumor meme thing. This is a real legitimate thing that is going on. And whether it happens or not remains to be seen. But that is where things stand right now with Micah Parsons. Pro Bill Huber. Check out his full article again over on Packers on SI. Meanwhile, Tommy, we've got a leadoff show today. Disappointing loss for the Brewers last night. Our pets' heads are falling off. We've got injuries piling up everywhere. Logan Henderson done for the year. Quinn Priester thankfully sounds pretty minor, but he's gonna missed his start yesterday at least. And then the closer is just in doubt too for the foreseeable future. Not exactly what you want this time of year, but also something that we are very used to as Brewer fans this time of year.
Yeah, I think that Milwaukee now, for the first time in a long time, is thinking ahead, Andy, and not really in the moment. And the Trevor McGill 15-day IL stint, he talked a little bit yesterday and basically had said rather nip it in the bud now than try to push through it and risk any playoff time having to be missed. I don't think that Abner Uribe can't fill those shoes. It's the rest of the bullpen having to now jump into a 7th inning role or an 8th inning role during this time that I think I get a little more worried about. And we saw yesterday Ashby open the game. Eric Fetty, newest Brewer now as well. I thought he was fine. It was obviously not the reason why the Brewers lost the game, but the Cubs also lost yesterday. Their magic number, I think, sits at 23 for the 1 seed right now. And the Brewers are just trying to get to that point and get to October ultimately healthier at that point, because that's where it's going to matter the most. And they are no longer, I feel like, in the moment. They have to look ahead just a little bit.
When you look at Fetty's walks and hits per innings pitched, you know what they call that? Fetty whip.
All right. Okay. Well, that's a great time to do this, right, Andy?
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack a Day Radio Show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, The Fan.
I've not done that to you ever. So
No.
you knew it was just. This is over a year. Almost.
I feel like you have to take the final thought of the day now. I'm going to put you on the spot and make you take it.
Andy, choose to believe. I know that you want to be in the professional space and you do a great job at it. And we got a lot of people here who all
I just
believe
said
it
Fetty
too.
Whip.
Yeah,
I just said Fetty.
right. I didn't say I'm baseball. But choose to believe, Andy. Why not? Just get your heart broken. You do it every year anyway at some point with the Green Bay Packers. So, like, why not just get that out of the way and then do it again? Do it twice this year if you want. Do it 3 times. Believe and then get your heart broken. Because otherwise you're going to be the guy, well, I knew it wasn't going to happen altogether. And you know who likes that guy? No one. No one likes that guy.
Tell me if you don't think I'm sitting on my phone scrolling all day trying to figure out the next, Micah Parsons update as to whether or not he's going to be a Green Bay Packer or not. I've got another thing coming. That has definitely been happening. I'm just like everyone else, wanting to get the next little crumble of information to see if it is more leaning towards Micah Parsons being a Green Bay Packer or if it's not him being a Green Bay Packer. Like I said, these are the fun things that we get to talk about. We talked about it the other day. It's like the Damian Lillard situation. That didn't work out. You know what? That excitement in the moment of trading for Damian Lillard and what he could potentially bring to the team. And I was at that very first game where Dame was a Milwaukee Buck. It was probably the best moment of the Dame Lillard era. I know he had better games than that after it, but that was like, you're still thinking they're going to win a championship with this group, that Dame and Giannis is going to be unstoppable. They beat the Sixers in game 1. Like it was, you're on top of the world, and it might work out. It might not work out. We have no idea what that looks like, but adding Micah Parsons to your team makes you a totally different team. I think it very much, I think closes that gap between you and Philly, or you and the top teams in the NFC and in the NFL. And I do think at some point in time, you've got to have superheroes, superstars, studs to get you to that finish line and across the finish line if you want to win a Super Bowl. Charles Woodson's, Reggie White's, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre's. We can go on and on. Leroy Butler's. Like, you had big time players, Nick Collins, etc. You have to have studs in their prime playing some of the best football of their lives. Clay Matthews, and Micah Parsons is a bona fide stud that would add that to this team. And when you get that opportunity, you can't look at it with a blind eye. You have to take a look at how you can get him on your roster. Absolutely. And yesterday you were rocking, I believe, 5%. Does that change at all today? I'm up to 7, okay. 7 to 8%. I'm going to say 7. I'm up to 7% is where I'm at right now. So again, I know how these things work. We are Green Bay Packers fans. We are very used to being heartbroken when like Tony Gonzalez, Jason Taylor, Randy Moss. We could go on and on. Khalil Mack. Yep. Now probably Micah Parsons is just another one added to that list of players where you thought maybe we're going to actually become Green Bay Packers, and then it just did not end up being the case. Like Bill Huber put in his article, this time needs to be different, and maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. I'm insanely intrigued at the moment right now to see what happens here. And I do think that there is real reason to actually be semi-hopeful with what's going on with this Micah Parsons situation. Really quick leadoff show. We talked about that, but like, what do you got live today? We are back in studio today. Okay. No, not on remote, but had a great time at Stenny's yesterday. Got to talk to some fans, like legitimately wanted to see me. That was weird. Haven't done that in a while. It's because we see family. It's good to see family. It was about as close to Cudahy as we go, so that's probably why. But yeah, it was a great time. Can't wait to do it again next week. We got plenty more coming up here in the chamber. Leadoff show today, 12 o'clock. Jose Quintana on the bump for the crew. I can't wait for that. Let's get a big win today from Milwaukee. Tommy, huge thank you to you. We've got more to cover, obviously, on this tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow we'll be talking about Micah Parsons, the Green Bay Packer. We'll keep you tuned on everything Micah Parsons all day today, right here on The Fan. Stay tuned for that Mason Crosby show with Mitch Thunder Nellis coming up next from 9 to 11. Pack-A-Day Podcast 365, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Make sure to check that out. Back tomorrow with Perry Goldstein of the Pack-A-Day Podcast. This has been the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. Enjoy your Thursday, and of course, go Pack Go.